Hello everyone, JD here, and I'm very pleased to share that our baby boy is now with us. It's been a very busy week, but everyone is back home and doing well. So thank you very much for all the kind messages, congratulations and good wishes that we've received. They've meant so much to us. I'll be returning back tomorrow and gradually getting back up to speed with everything that has been happening while I've been away, but also a massive thank you to the staff and volunteers for keeping everything running smoothly during my absence. This coming week is our final week before Sight for White closes for its usual August break, so please do speak to the team if there's anything you need before the closure period begins. I hope everyone has a pleasant, restful August and summer break, and I look forward to seeing and speaking with you again when we return. Take care, and thank you again for all of your support.
And here is this week's charity news for the 31st of July 2026.
Just a reminder that all member activities have now stopped for August and will reopen on Tuesday the 1st of September. Please note that the office here at Millbrook will remain open throughout the month, so please call or pop in and see us if you need any help and advice.
Yoga will restart in September at Millbrook House on Tuesday afternoons between 2 p.m. and 3 p.m. The group will only start depending on numbers showing an interest. Please call the office for more details or put your name on the list.
Thank you to Lynn, our wonderful volunteer who held a garden party for Sight for White last weekend. She raised £245 during the afternoon, which is very much appreciated.
We would also like to thank you all our wonderful volunteers who are helping over the weekend at Chale Show in the tea tent. Their time, help and support are very much appreciated by us all.
Our annual short story writing competition is now live, and this year the theme is love, hope and courage. Adult stories should be between 1,500 and 2,000 words. Children's stories 12 to 17 age up to 750 words, 8 to 11 years up to 500 words, and under 8 up to 250 words, and pictures can be used. For more details or for an entry form, please call the office and speak to Chris. This could be your summer project whilst the activities are on break, or encourage grandchildren and family members to enter. Lots of lovely prizes on offer.
This is Chris reading an article from the Isle of Wight County Press. Tribute as Isle of Wight resident John Langley dies at the age of 90. Isle of Wight resident John Langley, widely known as the proud father of Hollywood studio boss Dame Donna Langley, has died at the age of 90. His 3 children, Victor, Andrea and Donna, said they were saddened to announce the death of their father on July the 16th, following a short illness. John of Newport had regularly featured in the county press speaking about Dame Donna's success and her roots on the island, recalling how the family always encouraged her storytelling and supported her film ambitions. John was a mature student at the age of 32, studying for a Bachelor of Science honours degree in electrical engineering at Portsmouth Polytechnic, and was based at Ventnor Radio Station at the time in 1968. John spent his career working in air traffic control and introduced modern secondary surveillance radar, SSR, systems to the UK airspace. He took part in the development of airborne anti-collision systems and was part of the international team for upgraded European and global aviation safety standards. He spent his retirement enjoying hobbies such as attending a group for creatives at Carisbrooke Priory and travelling the world, visiting Donna in Los Angeles and spending time in New Zealand. He was widowed in 2023 following the death of his wife Anne, with whom he had celebrated a 65th wedding anniversary the previous year. A funeral will be held at the Isle of Wight Crematorium on Friday, August the 14th at 2:15 p.m. On a personal note, John was a regular participant of Parkrun, the 5K event held on a Saturday morning. He completed the 5K a few weeks ago on his 90th birthday, and he will be sadly missed by all Medina Parkrunners.
This is Brian reading an article from the Island Echo. Record 75 swimmers conquer the Solent in West Wight Crossing. A record 75 swimmers successfully crossed the Solent from Hurst Castle to Colwell Bay on Saturday, the 25th of July. Held in near perfect conditions, this year's West Wight Solent Swim saw participants of all ages and abilities complete the iconic open water challenge, supported by 46 kayakers, 6 powerboats, and the freshwater independent lifeboat. Swimmers entered the water at Hurst Castle at 7:15 a.m. for the annual crossing, which returned successfully after last year's event had to be abandoned despite 3 attempts because of unsuitable conditions. Although the event is not a race, the first swimmer ashore was West Wight Swimming Club coach Lottie James. Fellow coaches Jack Pickford and Beth William also completed the crossing, with father and son duo Charlie and Milo Bago close behind. For many taking part, however, the achievement was about far more than finishing first, with swimmers overcoming anxiety, fear, and personal challenges to reach Colwell Bay. Among the most emotional moments of the day was the arrival of brother and sister Paula and Chris Miles, who were overcome with emotion as they reached the shore together. They are the grandchildren of Shirley Miles, one of the volunteers who helped build the swimming pool at West Wight Sports and Community Centre, which celebrates its 50th anniversary in 2028. The oldest participant was 76-year-old Michael Bullock, who completed the crossing alongside his brother Clive, who is also in his 70s. Michael, a regular at the centre's weekly specialist care swimming sessions, served in the RAF during the Falklands conflict, Gulf War, and operations in Cambodia. Living with scoliosis, sustained during his military service, and central neuropathy, he was also diagnosed with prostate cancer last year. Unable to swim front crawl, he completed the entire crossing on his back. The event also showcased the strong family spirit surrounding the swim. Leslie Dye completed the challenge for a second time alongside daughter Ella and sons-in-law Morgan Gilbert and Dan Charder, whose husband Andy captained one of the support boats. For Isabel Hunt, the challenge began as a Christmas gift from her son Reese, who has supported the event for many years as a kayaker. This year, Reese joined the swimmers alongside his partner Louisa Critchley, while Isabel completed the crossing with swim partner Charlotte Wells. The Murphy family were also well represented, with sister Liz swimming with brothers Tom and Tony, whilst brothers Tom and Tony supported the event as kayakers. Claire Griffin, event director and centre manager at West Wight Sports and Community Centre, said, "This year's swim was our biggest ever, and what an incredible day it was. Huge thanks go to the many volunteers, safety teams, supporters and participants who worked so hard to make it happen."
This is Erin reading an article from the County Press. Vector House Care Home hosts annual classic car show. An Isle of Wight care home has hosted a classic car show that delighted residents and brought the community together. Vector House in Newport held its annual classic car show with support from the Vectis Historic Vehicle Club. The event featured a display of vintage cars and was filled with sunshine, music and fond memories. Tanya Everson, lifestyle leader at Vectis House, said, "We're absolutely delighted with the success of this year's car show. Events like this bring so much joy to our residents, triggering wonderful memories and providing fantastic opportunity to connect with the local community. We extend our huge thanks to the Vectis Historic Vehicle Club for their faithful support this year, and as well as Tracy's Faces for making the afternoon so special. The event included a lineup of classic cars, a candy floss stall, professional face painting by Tracy's Faces, and live music. Vector House Care Home regularly holds community events as part of its commitment to offering enriching activities for residents."
This is Chris, reading an article from the Island Echo. Isle of Wight councillors unanimously reject multi-million-pound McDonald's drive-through. A multi-million-pound McDonald's drive-through scheme has been refused by the Isle of Wight councillors on Tuesday night. The planning committee's unanimous vote comes after council officers advised the development next to Three Gates Road in Cowes be rejected, warning the proposal fails to show how it would prevent ill health in the community. 6 Reform UK councillors, 3 independents, 1 Liberal Democrat and a Conservative sit on the panel. County Hall received 186 representations from members of the public objecting to the plans and 138 letters in support. There have also been several petitions opposing the McDonald's, with one signed by 361 people. Another, with 1,788 digital signatures, and a further appeal signed by 141 individuals. Arguments in favour of the plan included job creation, greater choice of convenience food, the restaurant being cheap for families on low income, business rates revenue, and the project's sustainable design. Increased noise and disturbance, health concerns over fast food, harm to habitats and wildlife, light pollution, antisocial behaviour, odour, late night activity, litter, and jobs being part-time and low paid were among points raised by opponents.
This is Noah reading an article from the County Press. Isle of Wight house featured on BBC One's Homes Under the Hammer. A derelict Isle of Wight house's renovation was featured on BBC One's Homes Under the Hammer this month. In the episode broadcast on July 14th, presenter Jack Rees-Smith visited Carisbrooke, described as quiet and scenic. The 3-bedroom end terrace house was described as the worst on the best road before works was guided at £100,000. Soundtracked by Wet Leg, the presenter toured the house's ground floor before climbing the stairs leading to the bedrooms and the bathrooms, which felt derelict and unloved. The project, billed as not for the faint-hearted, was picked up by experienced local property developers Terry and Will for £127,500, with a set renovation budget of £55,000 and a project length of 12 weeks. Will said the rip-out was more extensive than imagined, but the renovations were completed in the time frame.
Hello, this is Madeline.
And this is Sam.
And we're reading the news items for the week commencing the 31st of July. Fire recovery may take years. Recovery at the fire-ravaged Heddon Warren could take many years, the National Trust has said, after acres of precious heathland was destroyed by a huge blaze, thought to be man-made. Following a 5-day battle, the wildfire, which broke out last Thursday, was finally put out on Monday. Firefighters estimated the blaze covered an operational area of about 60 acres, while around 22 acres of woodland and heath were confirmed to have been destroyed. At its height, more than 80 firefighters from the island and mainland tackled the flames. A specialist MD-500D helicopter was also enlisted to help. Something Hampshire and Isle of Wight Fire and Rescue Service said it has never done before. It shuttled back and forth, collecting and dropping seawater into smouldering ground that crews could not safely reach on foot. Local farmers also lent a hand, using their tractors to make fire breaks. Photographs taken on the hill reveal vast swathes of once purple heath, now reduced to scorched earth. Firefighters said they believed the fire was man-made and that it jumped to the gorse before spreading rapidly. They discovered remains of burnt wooden blocks, thought to have been from a campfire. Heddon Warren is a site of special scientific interest, with most of its land owned and managed by the National Trust. In a statement to the county press, a National Trust spokesperson said it was too early to give it a precise timescale for how long it would take the site to bounce back, but indicated it could be years. Recovery depends on the severity of the fire and the habitats affected, they said. Some vegetation may begin to regenerate relatively quickly, while other habitats and species can take many years to recover fully. We will assess the site and determine what conservation action may be needed once it is safe to do so. Paul Davies, countryside manager for the National Trust, said wildlife had been affected. Birds were nesting there, and the invertebrates that would not have been able to get to ground quickly enough. Many of the species, like reptiles, would have suffered as well. When a major fire hit Heddon Warren in 1989, experts suggested it could take around 4 to 5 years for the heather to regenerate. Firefighter James Lucy, who served as incident commander during the initial stages, said, "The incident was complex and difficult to deal with and escalated rapidly. What I witnessed was really all that's good about the fire service, people pulling together in difficult circumstances."
Blind woman hurt as dog attack ends guide dog's career. A blind woman was taken to hospital and her guide dog forced to retire after an out-of-control dog attacked them. Michelle Grossnickel of Chestnut Close, Ventnor, appeared before Isle of Wight magistrates on Friday, July the 24th. The 66-year-old admitted 2 counts of being in charge of a dog dangerously out of control and causing injury in Newport on January the 17th. Prosecutor Serena Edwards said a woman was walking with her assistance dog, Mocha, along Fieldfair Road at around 2:45 p.m. She said the woman, who was registered blind, was approaching a junction when she heard a male shouting after his dog, Izzy, in an urgent and panicked manner. Ms. Edwards told the bench the dog was snarling, growling and barking as it approached the pair at speed. The court heard Mocha gave it a warning bark, at which point Izzy launched at her, snapping and snarling in Mocha's face. Miss Edwards said the woman tried using her body to shield her dog and was bitten on the right ankle. She said Izzy backed off, then came back to try to bite Mocha again. The woman put her legs in the way and was bitten again. Then the dog latched onto one of her legs, said Miss Edwards. When the dog finally relented, a witness ran over and took the woman inside while her husband went and found Izzy's owner, Grossnickel. The woman was taken to hospital for treatment for bruises and torn skin, while her dog, which had no severe injuries, had to be retired because its confidence had been shattered. The court heard the woman lost her companion and she would have to wait 18 months for a new one. Ms Edwards said the cost of training a guide dog was around £72,000. Grossnickel, representing himself, said Izzy was a rescue dog from China and he was very remorseful. He said he failed to notice a clip on her harness was broken and his dog ran out in front of him at speed. Grossnickel said he bought the most extensive harness you can buy afterwards, doing everything to make sure it would never happen again. Grossnickel's case was adjourned to September the 29th for a pre-sentence report to be drawn up. He was granted unconditional bail.
Southern Water in pledge to find flooding solutions. Southern Water has pledged to provide temporary and long-term solutions to alleviate flooding at Bembridge Point and hold a public meeting in the area, an Isle of Wight councillor has said. Reducing storm overflow discharges is listed in a table of issues and action points from the utility firm, which Liberal Democrat ward representative Mark Rochelle shared at Bembridge Parish Council last Wednesday. Storm overflows act as relief valves built into the combined sewer system and discharge excess sewage and rainwater to rivers, lakes, groundwater or the sea when the system is strained, according to the Environment Agency. Councillor Rochelle said Lawrence has given the whole of the council commitments to the island. They're not a commitment to do better, they are quantifiable commitments with timeframes we have to hold them to. The list from Southern Water CEO Lawrence Gosden mentions ongoing flooding risks to customers in Bembridge, requiring immediate mitigation and strong local concern, which requires direct engagement and reassurance. Another box in the table says a permanent solution in Bembridge must be identified, which does not include the repair of the combined sewer overflow at Bembridge Point. Plans to restore the pipe were paused following backlash and a protest with more than 100 people, with locals concerned sewage would be dumped on the beach. The row also prompted former Conservative councillor Warren Drew to threaten legal action against Southern Water. Speaking after the parish council meeting, Councillor Rochelle said, The big if is if they follow through with these things. It's a great start. It's a massive improvement on what they've done in the past. But now they need to start actually delivering. If we're here this time next year and they haven't done any of these three things, there's no confidence and we can't work with you anymore. On Southern Water's recent record in Bembridge, he said, the whole CSO debacle was terrible. The councillor said everything possible must be done to stop sewage going into the sea and pointed to seagrass and protected wildlife off the coast from the village. Asked what steps he will take to try to hold Southern Water's feet to the fire, Councillor Rochelle said he has been in constant communication with Mr. Gosden and his team. He also mentioned putting the pressure on, as well as asking for meetings and updates. The representative said he supported the rejected Isle of Wight Council motion expressing no confidence in the utilities' work because it was important to reflect the anger people feel.
Drought declared amid hot weather and low rainfall. A drought has been declared on the Isle of Wight as a result of very low rainfall and high temperatures, the Environment Agency has said. The agency said 7 areas across central, eastern and southern England, including the Isle of Wight and Hampshire, are officially in drought. July is set to be the driest month on record, with England having just 7% of expected rainfall and southern England seeing just 1%. Much of the country is now in a flash drought that has hit quickly despite a very wet winter. The alert came as parts of the UK faced their 4th summer heat wave, with temperatures topping 30 degrees Celsius in places. There were record-breaking heat waves in May and June, and a third earlier this month, which have hit agriculture, rivers and the natural environment, prompted widespread wildfires, including one at Heddon Warren, and led to hosepipe bans for millions of people. The Met Office announced that a new June temperature record of 38 degrees Celsius has been confirmed, up from the 37.7 degrees Celsius provisionally announced. Almost a third of England is in prolonged drought, while only the North East and Yorkshire have normal conditions for the time of year. Parts of the country are in drought for the 2nd year running, despite winter rain refilling reservoirs and groundwater and easing the impact of a dry spring, the Environment Agency said. The country has had 3 droughts in 5 years, 2022, 2025 and 2026. Richard O'Callaghan, Environmental Manager for the Environment Agency's Solent and South Downs area, said, Hampshire and the Isle of Wight are in drought. Sussex remains in a state of prolonged dry weather. Environmental pressures have only grown in response to high water demand and low rainfall, with a drought order expected shortly for the River Test. Water companies are expected to follow their drought plans, and we will continue to balance the need for water against the needs of the environment. Water Minister Emma Hardy said, Our climate is changing. Droughts are becoming increasingly common, and we need to be prepared for this new normal. We're delivering long-term change in the water industry and driving record investments in infrastructure, including 9 new reservoirs. We expect water companies to follow their drought plans, to go further and faster to reduce leaks, and to ensure supplies are not disrupted, even in the driest of weather.
Red pandas leave zoo for new home. 2 endangered red pandas are settling into a new home. Xio May and Xio Bayo, born at Amazon World Zoo Park in Newchurch, have moved to Parc de l'Auxerrois in France. Their relocation is part of an international conservation breeding programme under the European Association of Zoos and Aquaria, EAZA, ex situ programme EEP. The young red pandas, born on June the 17th, 2025, are the offspring of Xiao Xing and Flint, marking a significant conservation achievement for the Isle of Wight Zoo. Rachel Patrick, head keeper at Amazon World Zoo Park, said, Watching these 2 incredible female red pandas grow from tiny cubs into independent young adults has been an absolute highlight for our entire keeping team. While we will miss their playful energy daily, sending them to France is a vital step forward for the international breeding programme. We are incredibly proud to contribute to the global conservation of this endangered species, and we know our colleagues in France will cherish them just as much as we have. Their early weeks were not without challenges. During their first health check, both cubs were underweight, prompting senior keepers to step in and co-rear them by supplementing their feeds with puppy milk throughout the day, while they remained with their mother. The family was monitored through nest box cameras to minimise disturbance. Despite the loss of their mother to age-related illness, the cubs continued to thrive, thanks to the dedicated care from the zoo's animal team. Red pandas are listed as endangered by the International Union for Conservation of Nature, with populations declining by 50% over the past 2 decades. Fewer than 10,000 are estimated to remain in the wild. Amazon World Zoo Park has participated in EAZA conservation schemes for more than 20 years. The zoo contributes through responsible breeding, education and conservation. Although staff were sad to say goodbye, the move is considered a success for the programme. Amazon World plans to welcome a new female red panda soon to join Flint and continue their breeding efforts.
Beefeater set to close for good. Popular restaurant Beefeater in Newport will close in just over 1 month, it has been confirmed. The Medina Quay venue is among 106 Beefeater sites across the UK due to shut in the coming weeks as part of a major restructuring. The move follows earlier uncertainty over the restaurant's future when Beefeater's parent company, Whitbread plc, announced plans for widespread job cuts and a shift in its business model. It has been confirmed that Medina Quay Beefeater will close its doors on September the 10th. The news is likely to disappoint some islanders. In May, Newport resident Barry Carpenter wrote to the county press expressing his shock and dismay at the proposed closure. "It's such a lovely restaurant and a little gem within the community of Newport and the wider island," he said. Outlining the reasons why it is so loved, he added, "It is probably fair to say that it is the jewel within the crown of Whitbread's restaurants. Surely this cannot be allowed to happen." The UK restaurant closures are part of a new 5-year growth strategy aimed at cutting £250 million in costs and refocusing Whitbread on its Premier Inn hotel business. Beefeater's loyalty scheme will end on August the 31st.
Yacht seizure in trafficking operation. A yacht intercepted off the Isle of Wight during a major people smuggling operation is set to be sold at public auction a year after it was seized. The vessel, a Colvik UFO 34 sailing yacht named Euphoria, was stopped in the English Channel during a joint cross-border operation involving British and French authorities. Now the 1976-built cruiser Racer is among a range of seized and recovered assets due to undergo the hammer yesterday, Thursday. The yacht was sailed by 2 Ukrainian men who admitted 3 counts of helping migrants enter the UK illegally following their interception and arrest off the Isle of Wight on July the 20th last year. The vessel was escorted into Gosport Marina, where officers found 5 migrants on board, comprising 4 Albanian men and a Vietnamese woman. Prosecutors said each migrant had paid around £10,500 for their passage to the UK. One of the convicted Ukrainians was said to have purchased the yacht. On behalf of the government's National Crime Agency, Euphoria is now being offered to the highest bidder with no reserve price. Advertised as a featured lot by Belfast-based Wilson's Auctions, the yacht is designed by renowned yacht architects Holman and Pye. The vessel measures 33.3 feet and is currently moored in Gosport.
Absolute chaos claims over island roadworks. Questions over the absolute chaos on the Isle of Wight's highways have been raised after hundreds of roadworks started in each of the first 3 months of this year. Labour councillor Jock Rafferty asked what went wrong at the Economy, Regeneration, Transport and Infrastructure Committee, ERTIC, on Thursday, July the 23rd, following a presentation from Island Roads. Jimmy Wells, network manager for the service provider, told councillors over 12,000 applications to work on the highways were received in 2025-26, with around 1,000 coming through a month. A total of 7,934 permitting applications were granted in 2025-26. Councillor Rafferty said, "Looking from the general public's point of view, it looks like there's absolute chaos on the island's roads. Is this as good as it gets? Is it going to get any better? Are we going to be expecting this for the next 5 years?" Simon Moon, Strategic Director of Community Services, responded, "I've been in post 3 months now and I'm very clear that roadworks, what's going on is a major issue for residents, businesses and all members of this council. So it has to improve. We have a responsibility as the Highway Authority with our partners, who we ask to deliver these services through Island Roads, to first of all deliver our own works in line with the best practice that we can possibly adopt, but also hold utility companies to account. Some of my reflections of what I've seen in the first 3 months is we're not doing that consistently and strongly enough with some of these utility operators." He said any utility company will say there is an emergency and can get onto the network quite quickly. But referring to statistics shared by Island Roads, Mr. Moon said that while a lot of the works are probably urgent, they are not emergencies. "We need to call that out. I don't think we're calling it out," he said. The officer said a lot of resources and pressure has to be applied to tackle this, with some tough conversations. Mr. Moon added that if these don't take place, matters will not change, which he said was not acceptable.
Lifelong injuries in pothole trip horror. No one will take responsibility. A woman whose life has been changed forever after she tripped on a deep pothole said, "No one has taken responsibility for it and she has just been dismissed and brushed aside." Alison Smith, 48, of Ventnor, suffered life-changing injuries when she tripped on a pothole in the dark in an unlit area of Bonchurch. Some sections of Shore Road near the famous Bonchurch Pond do not have pavement, forcing pedestrians onto the road. Alison tripped into a large pothole in January 2025 and suffered injuries so severe she permanently lost 7 teeth and the use of her left hand and suffered facial injuries. She temporarily had to give up singing with bands such as Scarred for Life, but is back in voice now, having learned to cope with false teeth. She was forced to stop delivering food packages to the community, which she had done for many years, and had to give up working at her beloved Gaslight Cafe in Sandown. She said, "I'm still so upset about it. Ilam Roads are saying they've done enough and have now filled the pothole in. But if it caused this much injury to me, old people could have died if they had gone flying like I did. I have considered the no-win, no-fee compensation claims, but I have suffered the loss of both my parents in recent years, and I have been going through too hard a time. I just want someone to take responsibility for this. I've paid the price, and my daughter, who found me all bloodied after the fall, is still traumatised by it. It's so unfair. Something that was not my fault has ruined my life, while Ilam Roads has just filled the holes and resurfaced the whole road and dismissed me. It's not about money, otherwise I would be pursuing a claim. It is to stop others going through this, and for some acknowledgement of the distress this has caused, and to stop it happening to others. I hope they will take responsibility and help me after all this time." An Island Road spokesperson told the county press, "We have every sympathy for Miss Smith and for the injuries she has sustained as a result of this accident. A claim relating to this matter was received, fully investigated, and a formal response is issued to Miss Smith in April 2025. The road was inspected in October 2024 as part of its routine 6-monthly inspection and in line with accepted industry practice. No defects were identified that met the threshold for intervention either at that time or during our investigation following the incident. However, having been brought to our attention, we arranged for the pothole referred to in the claim, along with another nearby pothole, to be repaired as part of our ongoing maintenance programme. Every claim is carefully considered on its individual merits, taking account of available evidence and the legal responsibilities of the Highway Authority and Island Roads as its service provider. Having completed our investigation, we concluded we are unable to accept liability in this case. We appreciate the outcome will be disappointing for Miss Smith, but we have a responsibility to assess all claims consistently." In response, Alison said, "That does not surprise me. I think it's absolutely disgusting. I find it astonishing that Island Roads can simply say they've looked at the road and in their opinion they're not liable. It doesn't sit right that they get to decide that for themselves."
Drink driver admits taking his partner's car and crashing it. An Isle of Wight man could face jail after taking his partner's Toyota Aygo without permission and crashing into 2 parked vehicles while over the drink drive limit. Jay Pearce of West Hill Road, Ryde, appeared at the Isle of Wight Magistrates Court on Friday, July the 17th. Pearce admitted to aggravated vehicle taking, drink driving, failing to stop after an accident, and driving without a valid licence. The offences stem from a crash in Weeks Road, Ryde, on December the 5th last year. Police received a report at 9:31 p.m. that a vehicle had been driven into parked cars and that the driver had fled the scene, said Liz Miller, prosecuting. Pierce, 32, then called police, admitted causing the crash, and told officers where to find him. He was arrested and taken to Newport Police Station. Pierce admitted taking a Toyota Aygo without permission, telling officers only his partner could drive it. He also admitted he did not hold a full driving licence. Pierce admitted driving into and damaging 2 parked vehicles, and conceded to police he was likely to have been over the legal drink-drive limit at the time. He said the car skidded on wet roads and he lost control, despite believing he had been within the speed limit, Miss Miller added. Pierce also admitted leaving without trying to find the vehicle's owners or exchange details. The crash caused significant damage to a hatchback and a transit van. Police said the collision caused more than £1,300 worth of damage to the car and around £3,000 in damage and lost earnings relating to the van. Pierce provided the police with a breath reading of 59 milligrams of alcohol in 100 millilitres of breath. The legal limit is 35. For Pierce, Oscar Vincent said his client reported himself to police and that he effectively admitted the offences during interview and had no previous convictions. Magistrates called for a pre-sentence report on all sentencing options, including custody. They banned Pierce from driving in the meantime and bailed him until sentencing on September the 22nd.
Working age adult anxiety. Over a quarter of the Isle of Wight's working age population has diagnosed anxiety. Mental illness is the most common long-term health diagnosis affecting the demographic and a major contributor to extended sickness, County Hall's Public Health Director Kate Harvey has said in a 2025-2026 report. The paper shows that out of the island's working age adults, 29.3% were around 22,400 people have diagnosed anxiety, 24.2% have been diagnosed with depression, or roughly 19,300, and 16.3%, approximately 13,000, have both. Councillor James Whelan, Reform UK Chair of the Adult Social Care, Public Health and Housing Needs Committee, said, "In light of the Public Health Report and the evidence provided, it is extremely important that we bring the mental health team before the committee to discuss the findings of their CQC report and hear their action plan on improvements for mental health services on the island. Mental health crisis services provided by the Hampshire and Isle of Wight Healthcare NHS Foundation Trust have been rated requires improvement by the CQC. Local employment, often lower paid, seasonal or physically demanding, combined with financial pressure and housing insecurity, contributes to greater levels of stress, anxiety and depression, according to Ms. Harvey's report. The document says diagnosis rates of anxiety, depression or both increase with age. A local pattern which differs from national trends and may reflect differences in help-seeking behaviour and diagnostic recording rather than underlying need. Women have a higher recorded prevalence of mental illness than men. Across the Isle of Wight, rates vary in line with deprivation. Out of the 20% most deprived areas, 42% of working age people have anxiety, depression, or both diagnosed on their GP's record. This is compared to 31% in the least deprived areas. Councillor Michael Lilly, Isle of Wight Council Mental Health Champion, said there has to be a radical review and investment in mental well-being as an urgent priority. He said, "The report evidences that poor mental health is a deep-rooted reality and issue, and for me is a health priority. The key message from residents is the lack of early help to prevent falling into acute services, and when coming out of overstretched acute NHS services, lack of recovery support in the community. If you simply feel bad about yourself, anxious and depressed, you are not going to function well in life. And without support, your life can unravel. Everyone needs access to support early." Ms. Harvey said her report highlights examples of how partners continue to work to reduce anxiety and improve mental well-being, including focusing on prevention, early support, and building resilience. Initiatives include Connect to Work, adult community learning, Job Centre Plus programmes such as Working Towards Wellbeing, and support from the Youth Trust.
And now moving on to Wight Memories and Nostalgia with an article on the history of Royal Yacht Squadron. It's an island institution and Cowes landmark, but why is it called the Royal Yacht Squadron? To answer that question, we have to go back to the 17th century, when formal sailboat racing for pleasure was believed to have been started in the Netherlands. It was introduced to England with the return of King Charles II from exile in Holland in 1660, with a race in 1661 on the River Thames, a competition between two large royal sailing vessels, the Catherine and the Anne, with King Charles II taking part on one of the boats. Ireland's Cork Water Club, now the Royal Cork Yacht Club, was founded in 1720 as the first yacht club. This was eventually followed in England, with the sport being patronised by the then Prince Regent. In the 1820s, after the Prince became George IV and joined the Isle of Wight Yacht Club, it was renamed the Royal Yacht Club. In 1829, the Royal Navy granted the club a warrant to fly the white ensign. The permission is thought to have meant members would make their larger yachts available to the Navy in wartime. It was in 1833 that the then William IV, who was a member by order, had squadron added to the name, making it the Royal Yacht Squadron. Yacht clubs later formalised the sport and set its early rules. The squadron became a leading, then exclusive yacht club, with the Earl of Yarborough as its first commodore. Membership became so prestigious that many applicants were reportedly turned away. Here are some of those tales, fact or fiction. Despite meeting all the preconditions and being put forward by Edward VII, the tea merchant, Sir Thomas Lipton, had to wait until his 80th birthday before his request to join was agreed, probably because he was in trade. He died 2 years after it was finally granted.
Another story that does the rounds, true or not, was that Prince Albert, consort to Queen Victoria, applied to join and was refused, possibly because he was of German origin. However, his wife Victoria arranged to have his own prestigious yacht club in Ryde built, named Prince Consort Yacht Club. A final tale concerns former Prime Minister Edward Heath. The successful yachtsman applied to join the squadron in the 1970s but was refused. Cowes Week has long drawn royalty from Britain and abroad. Reigning monarchs, including the Tsar of Russia, the German Kaiser, and the King of Spain, once took part in the regatta. Some well-known historical characters that were members of the club were Admiral Thomas Hardy and polar explorer Captain Scott. Some globe-trotting members published accounts of voyages in their yachts, but not all their adventures ended well. One member, Ben Boyd, was reportedly captured and eaten by people in the Solomon Islands in 1851. Today, the squadron is based at Cowes Castle. It was originally one of the forts built by Henry VIII to protect the island. A matching castle was also built in East Cowes. Early records said the castles would help cow any Spanish invaders. The town is said to have taken its name from that claim. Some larger yachts flying the white ensign are said to have aided the Navy during the Crimean War. The club is also said to have helped during the First and Second World Wars. The squadron stands out on the seafront with brass cannons, believed to be from HMS Adelaide, which are fired to start some races. While keeping its traditions, the club now admits women. It also works with organisations promoting yachting, including the Royal Ocean Racing Club.
And now on to days gone by. The county press has been bringing the news to islanders since 1884. We've delved into the archives.
125 years ago, in August 1901, Cowes District Council discussed hanging a portrait of the late Queen in the town hall, where she had been a regular visitor. The Isle of Wight Rural District Council expressed an intention to regulate and manage Chale Green, with plans to spend money on its drainage, levelling and improvement. A tablet was to be erected in Ryde Town Hall, commemorating services rendered in South Africa by volunteers born in Ryde.
100 years ago, in July 1926, the King and Queen arrived to celebrate Cowes Week, with the parade and front crowded with people keen to witness their arrival. A newly erected bandstand and enclosure on the Western Esplanade Ride was opened in the presence of the Mayor, Roland Russell, at a cost of £3,330. The Queen attended a charity fete at the bowling green at Carisbrooke Castle, an event opened by Princess Beatrice. The annual meeting of the Isle of Wight Hunt showed an improved financial position and discussed a proposal for a central site for the kennels.
75 years ago, in August 1951, an electrical storm of tropical intensity raged over the island on Monday night, with residents describing the lightning display as the most spectacular in living memory. There was severe flooding in Cowes High Street, where water reached 3 feet deep, and residents stayed up through the night to pump it from their homes. The island's oldest resident, Harriet Marvin, 110, of Solent View, Gurnard, died.
50 years ago, in July 1976, Britain's former heavyweight boxing champion Henry Cooper reopened Ladbrokes leisure premises in Ryde. Pupils of West Wight Middle School, Freshwater, were allowed to take their bicycles to school for the first time, provided they had passed their cycling proficiency tests. Knighton Parish Council held a site meeting to discuss developing a children's playground. A strip 20 metres from the railings had been pegged out and an area set aside for a football pitch.
And now for my view from Matthew Chatfield. When is it time to hand over the car keys? Spotted in traffic the other day a car sticker declaring, "Elderly driver, please be patient." Now I have a personal stake here, having recently crossed the threshold into my 60th year. By most modern metrics, that puts me in the departure lounge of middle age, cruising towards the foothills of the elderly. Of course, elderly is relative. When you are 20, someone of 25 is an archaeological relic. For my venerable mother, I am still something of a spring chicken, but it does raise a delicate question. If we asked to exercise patience with older motorists, is it unreasonable to ask for a little reciprocity? We have all been there, crawling behind a Nissan Micra at 20 miles per hour along the Downs Road, watching a queue of frustrated islanders build up like a mechanical conga line. Of course, we should be kind, we should be patient. But if your driving has become so tentative that you feel obliged to advertise the fact passing traffic, one has to gently ask, is it time to hand back the keys? Naturally, the standard riposte is the sacred bus pass. Free travel across the island. Marvellous, assuming you happen to live within tottering distance of a bus stop that sees a service more frequent than an annual open-top tour. People roll up to our shores in their retirement, rightly seduced by the sea air, the thatched cottages and the bucolic charm of country life. They buy wonderful properties far off down winding lanes, never quite planning for the day when clutch control becomes an extreme sport. We all assume our independence is infinite, that we will always be able to motor down to the co-op without a second thought. Then reality bites and we find ourselves resorting to apologetic decals. It is a failure of foresight, both personal and infrastructural. If you're planning to retire to the country, a splendid idea to be sure, you need to think decades ahead. Do you want your golden years defined by anxious glasses in the rearview mirror, or would you rather live somewhere where you can actually catch a bus that turns up when it's supposed to? Now, our bus service on the island is not bad, in the towns at least, compared to much of the rural mainland. And thanks to PM Burnham's recent headline-grabbing announcement, if you're too young for a bus pass, it won't even be that expensive. But that's no use in Yafford or Cranmore. So, if you are currently eyeing up a picturesque cottage in the sticks for your retirement, do yourself a favour. Factor in the logistics, because nobody should aspire to spending their twilight years apologising to a mile-long queue of angry commuters with a sticker on the boot. Choose your spot wisely, embrace the bus pass when it arrives, and save the road space for those still trying to get to the tip before it closes.
And now on to public information with New Tools to Protect People from Scams by Sally Ash from the Isle of Wight Against Scams Partnership. The National Trading Standards Scam Team, Friends Against Scams, have produced some new and useful tools to help you protect yourself from scams. They have a new page on their website that includes guidance on recognising common scam tactics and warning signs, advice on safeguarding personal information and reducing digital vulnerabilities, clear instructions on how to report scams and access support, links to wider Friends Against Scams materials, including training and awareness resources. They have also updated their app, notifications and direct access to scams alerts from Which, monthly scam quizzes to test knowledge of current scam trends, resources for practitioners and the public, including toolkits and educational materials, and additional learning modules for professionals supporting scam victims. Alongside these updates, users can continue to check potential scams using the Ask Silver AI Scams checker and complete the Friends Against Scams training directly from their phone. The app is available for free on all Android and iOS devices and can be downloaded from the respective app stores using the link linktree.ee/friends_against_scams. Please use these resources to protect yourselves and any friends or relatives that may benefit from this information and support. You can continue to find additional support on our website www.iwasp.org.uk. For advice on scams, call Citizens Advice Consumer Helpline 0808 223 1133. This is a free phone number. To report a scam, call Report Fraud on 0300 123 2040.
And now for What's On. Summer of events for Fort. Bembridge Fort is set to host a new range of summer events, including social evenings and exclusive tours. The Fortyard Sessions, a series of summer social evenings, will take place every Tuesday in August from 5 p.m. to 9 p.m, featuring food, a pop-up bar and DJ sets in the historic courtyard. For history enthusiasts, the Fort is launching special summer hosted tours every Wednesday and Saturday, starting from July the 29th. The guided tours, each lasting 2 hours, will provide an in-depth look into the Victorian Palmerston Fort. Visitors will explore rarely accessible areas, including the terraplane, the dry ditch, and an underground tunnel network. With only 25 spots available per tour, tickets are expected to go quickly. The tours are scheduled for 11 a.m. and 2 p.m. The Hidden Jazz Club will also make a return on August the 23rd, aiming to offer an underground jazz vibe from a bygone era. For tickets and information, visit bembridgefort.org or follow Bembridge Fort on social media.
And now on to the letters, starting with Seeking Information about Nurse's Cottage by Dr. John Wyatt from Cranbrook in Kent. If anyone has information on the Homes of Rest for Nurses, called Seaside Cottage in Bonchurch, which was opened by Princess Beatrice in 1920, please contact me. In particular, any picture or photo of the cottage would be most helpful. I am writing a book about my great aunt who helped establish it with John Martin Harvey, the actor. My email address is jwyattassociates@live.co.uk.
Fur coat in a heat wave from C. Heatley Shanklin. Would you wear a fur coat in a heat wave? Then why do people take their dogs out in it with no water? Do they not understand that dogs are dying in every heat wave? Dogs burn their paws on the very hot pavements. People should take water out with them to drink and put over them to cool down.
Enormous Thank You to Joey by Marianne Rimmons of Bembridge. Last Friday, July the 24th, I was sailing to Cowes with my friend Tansy on the 12:05 Red Funnel ferry to Southampton. On arrival, walking down the exit, I felt strange and dizzy. I explained to Tansy, "It's nothing, a little seasickness," as I grabbed a nearby pole to hang to. Suddenly, a lovely member of Red Funnel staff appeared from nowhere, the delightful Joey with a wheelchair. I was and am so grateful to Joey as I was feeling really unwell. At the same time, further along, more drama was happening. Taxis were not allowed to wait in their normal abode owing to a person in trouble. So Joey pushed me in the wheelchair further than expected to our awaiting taxi on his break. My enormous thank you and appreciation to Joey, Red Funnel and staff.
Review Costs and Energy Regulator from Paul Knocker in Bembridge. It is typical these days for our political leaders to express concern about the cost of living, then try to grab a headline for a quick short-term fix. Andy Burnham had only been in office for a couple of days when he now announced that he would help struggling customers as part of his cost of living campaign by cutting 5% VAT on electricity, not gas, bills. That would be a saving of £45 in a year, but only for 6 months from October. You would think that with a bit of common sense and a full understanding of the prolonged energy crisis, he might have combined this announcement with an urgent plan for a detailed investigation into the underlying reasons why Britain has faced such high energy costs over the past decade and the severe consequences for families and businesses. This should include a review of the role and performance of Ofgem, the UK energy regulator, whose original brief states, "Our role is to protect the interests of consumers, making sure that homes, businesses and non-domestic properties get affordable, secure and reliably energy." And that's all we have time for today, so it's goodbye from Madeline.
And it's goodbye from Sam.
The BBC In Touch programme follows, and the Scaffolding News follows that.
Hello. Later today, how our visually impaired competitors are doing in the Commonwealth Games, and your views on the future of Braille. But first, 160 years ago, a school was founded specifically for blind boys. It was known then as a college for the blind sons of gentlemen. Gradually, the paternal class requirement was dropped, and back in the 1980s, so was the need to be male, as it admitted girls for the first time. And now, as New College Worcester joins a local trust, perhaps most radically, so has even the need to have a visual impairment, as the school takes in its first non-visually impaired student. So what's going on and why? I put that question to New College Worcester's principal, Rachel Perks.
Expansion of SEND goes far beyond NCW, and having spoken to countless people in the VI community and the wider SEND community, all of us are experiencing similar challenges in relation to finances. And we've done huge amounts of research into best practice, including spending time with other schools, which have successfully diversified.
And why are you saying that this has been nudged forward by the government's report on SEND and its so-called new plans?
I'm certainly saying that it's being nudged forward in terms of funding. I'm not going to sit here and say that funding hasn't played a part. You know, you've got a tribunal system that's reached its limit long ago, coupled with reduced local authority funding. And that's an issue that others in the VI sector are facing as well as us. So joining with a fantastic group like Aqualis Education Trust means that we manage to maintain an essential asset for the VI community. But the commissioning and funding system is essentially broken, and that's why we've been taking the fight directly to the UK government and the policymakers. But it's also why we've had to look at additional income streams and partnerships like Aqualis to secure our offer for the long term.
So it would be true to say, would it, that you didn't actually really want to do this initially. You've been pushed into it, but you feel, by financial necessity.
I would say we've been nudged into it by financial necessity, certainly. And vision impairment is our core priority, but much of what we offer does allow us to broaden to a wide range of special educational needs, because we're already used to catering for students whose secondary and tertiary needs go beyond VI.
What's been the attitude of others, of parents, for example, pupils maybe even, how have people reacted to this? Because you do have 160 years of a specific aim, which some people may say could be lessened or damaged by this.
I would agree. We've got a very proud 160-year history of giving young people with vision impairment the education and the independent living skills that they need to reach their full potential, both academically and socially. We will remain a national centre of excellence for vision impairment, and I can't envisage a time when VI is not a core priority. My job is to ensure that we continue to provide young people with vision impairment the education and those independent living skills they need. If we hadn't done anything, then it could have been a different story for us in the next 18 months to 2 years. But that is not the case, and we are on a strong and stable footing for our future now.
But your reputation has been based on the idea of providing a specialist education based on the specific needs of visually impaired pupils. Won't this decision inevitably dilute that specialism? Disability is a very broad term, and visual impairment gives rise to a very specific group of needs.
It does, but as I would like to reiterate, vision impairment continues to sit at the heart of our provision, our staffing expertise, our culture and our approach. Our teaching continues to be VI specialist, QTVI led. We are not going to do anything to jeopardise that, and our expansion doesn't involve reducing or diluting the curriculum framework for vision impairment that our students currently receive, which is so rich for them. I think another important principle to remember is that the students admitted to our school who don't have VI as their primary need are students who are integrating into our environment and not the other way around. Our teaching methods, classroom practice, routines and curriculum are designed around the VI world, and that will remain the case. It's interesting to note that the students themselves were positive. We have had some students who've been in on taster days and assessments, and one of our current students said, "It's lovely, I've never had a friend before who's had sight." And that was really quite impactful, I think, for a lot of the adults in the room.
That is quite interesting, and I suppose it's a kind of reverse integration, if you like.
Yes, yes, definitely. We believe that reverse inclusion models strengthen rather than undermine our specialist ethos. We've seen it work in other schools like ours. We spent a lot of time researching whether this was something that could be of benefit to us, as well as something within the arena of what else can we do to ensure that we remain as an asset for the VI community.
Was there no other way you could deal with this problem? Maybe cutting fees, for example, keeping costs down that way?
I don't think it's an issue of cutting fees and keeping costs down, because we continue to offer the mainstream curriculum, and a very rich mainstream curriculum in terms of offers at GCSE and at A-level, and we didn't want to minimise that. Our USP, if you like, is the fact that we offer that mainstream formal education and that wide basis, but we also offer the curriculum framework for vision impairment. We wanted and we need to keep offering that specialism of our habilitation, our mobility officers, our Braille, our access tech. We need to keep that front and centre as the reason that parents and students choose us So we can't keep cutting our cloth. We have to look at other alternatives.
How far advanced is the process now? I mean, how are new pupils adapting, for example, to a situation where everyone else has a visual impairment, looking at it from their point of view?
We're taking the process slowly. So we are starting with, at the moment, numbers less than 5 on our radar. By that, I mean students who've come to us for a visit, a tour, an assessment, a well thought out transition into our setting. And we're talking small numbers because we go through a very careful process to make sure that we're able to meet the needs of every student that attends, and that the wider student population, our VI wider student population, isn't negatively impacted. So how are new students settling? I'm sure we have asked them, and they're enjoying being in school, sometimes for the first time in a long time.
One final question. Can I just ask you how the staffing issue works here? Because you have staff who have been handpicked, to help visually impaired people. How do the economics work of presumably taking on staff with other specialisms? Is that going to actually cost you money rather than save you money?
There is an additional cost to it at the moment. And the reason I say that is because many of the needs that we're looking at are those secondary and tertiary needs that our students currently have. Many of our young people who come to us have been out of education for a long time because of the tribunal process. And that has meant that emotionally integrating back into a setting has been extremely difficult for some of them. And those are the students that we believe that we can help and support now. So our staff are already incredibly well trained and incredibly empathetic and nurturing to students with needs that are broader than VI already. So it hasn't been a question of extending the costs required for that at this stage.
But it might in the future.
It might in the future, but that's part of joining with the Aqualis Education Trust family in terms of the fact that any cost there would be absolutely minimised by their expertise and the support that they're able to give us.
So that is how you get round the problem that you aren't in the situation of these new pupils having to be paid for by local authorities in exactly the way that you were having such a problem with visually impaired youngsters.
Yes, I would agree with that.
Rachel Perks, Principal at New College, Worcester. Thank you very much indeed. Now to some of your responses to previous programmes, and staying with the theme of education, many of you have joined the debate about the relevance of Braille. Almost all of you favouring the idea of youngsters learning it as early as possible. Kate Risdon emailed this advice to Caroline Mackenzie, grandmother of 4-year-old Rory. She originally put the question to us.
It's absolutely vital that she insists that Rory learns Braille from the beginning. He needs to develop the hand skills needed to read Braille fast and fluently, so that by the time he reaches secondary school, he can learn the amount and complexity of material needed to study his GCSEs and beyond. I read and teach Braille and Braille music and work as a professional musician. I teach Braille to young people on a daily basis. I see far too many young people who start their Braille journey in secondary school struggling to cope with large print and the transition to tactile reading when they could be fluent readers and studying easily and quickly like everybody else. It is a great unkindness and an enormous glass ceiling that we put on our young people to force them to cope with large print and not give them material in Braille. They end up, as Caroline said, with headaches and eye strain, reading slowly and with difficulty.
Meanwhile, Keith Hatter came to Braille much later, but found it of enormous value.
Rather than at the age of 4 or 5, I learnt Braille in my 50s and therefore am not and never shall be as proficient as the programme's participants. I can, however, read novels quickly enough to discuss them at monthly meetings of a book group to which I belong. Yes, of course I use talking books as well, but good as they are, they don't enable one to interpret the voices and intonations of characters in one's own way, and it's only with Braille that one can truly have the experience of reading. I don't understand how someone without sight can keep track of print documents such as bills without labelling them in Braille. Whilst phone apps can read them, filing them is almost impossible without a way of identifying them without the awkward and time-consuming process of photographing every piece of paper in a pile. To those who might say that technology can replace print and paper, I'd say imagine that all printed material, pens and paper were to suddenly cease to exist. You'd be completely stuck. This is what it would be like for people like me if the same happened to Braille.
Were those views very much representative of what many of you had to say? Finally today, news of visually impaired competitors taking part in this year's Commonwealth Games, rescued by Glasgow when the Australian state of Victoria pulled out a couple of years ago. The Games are very much valued by disabled athletes because they're still one of the only opportunities that they have for taking part in an integrated Games. Remember Birmingham 4 years ago, so the Commonwealth Games has really stuck by that principle. The Games are smaller than their predecessors due to the speed at which it's all had to be put together, but they've already given rise to some great competition in front of enthusiastic Scottish crowds, notably early on in the swimming pool. Well, joining us is BBC Scotland's sport correspondent Chris McLaughlin. Chris, first of all, how have they managed to get all this together so fast?
Yeah, hi Peter. It has been a challenge, there's no doubt about that. The state of Victoria in Australia was supposed to be hosting these games and they pulled out in 2023. So Glasgow stuck its hand up and says, look, we will do this, but they had an 18-month build up to this. Usually it's about 6 or 7 years, so you can imagine. I think one of the key aspects for those who were organising these games is they wanted to make them different. They knew that they had to be different, these games. They're calling them the reimagined games. And part of that difference is they are integrating the para-sports alongside the general sports programme. So that is very key, and that has gone down very, very well. And I think that what they're hoping is that will be a blueprint for multi-sport events in the future. That has gone down very well with the crowds here in Glasgow.
Right. Now, as you'll understand, we're particularly interested in the visually impaired competitors, and it does seem to be the pool, really, the swimming pool, where they've done particularly well.
Yeah, I mean, look, I think later on in the programme we'll see track cycling, which is always huge for visually impaired athletes as well. But you're right, the pool at the moment is where most of the big names are. Now, Stephen Clegg, brother of Libby Clegg, who many remember as a visually impaired runner.
World-class sprinter, in fact.
Absolutely. You're absolutely right. World-class sprinter indeed. He has taken silver in the 100 metres free S13, and his brother James, a very, very impressive family, clearly, came fourth. So huge cheers for the Scots at the pool in Tollcross, and also from Wales, Ella Letton-Jones, just 19, a silver for her in the S13 100 metres freestyle as well. So some really, really big names and some huge achievements in the pool.
Did you know the Clegg brothers had to miss Libby's wedding?
I saw that this morning. I mean, that is dedication, Peter, isn't it? That is real dedication to your sport. I'm not sure how much Libby would have appreciated that.
Well, I reckon a medal might have softened the blow a bit.
You're right. Yeah. Maybe Stephen will give her the silver medal. Although I'm sure she's got many, many medals of her own to keep her cabinet busy. I think one of the other things, Peter, that really intrigued me was the Carroll sisters.
Yeah.
Astrid and Ursula. Astrid born in Edinburgh, 17 years old. Sister Ursula, 14 years old, born in Halifax. And one is competing for Team Scotland and one is competing for Team England. So I think they both got through their heats for tonight for the 50 metres freestyle. So that's going to be really interesting to watch, isn't it? They already competed in the 100 metres, 6th and 7th, I think they were.
That's right, because they were in the same. They were in the same race as Ella, weren't they?
Exactly. Yeah. Exactly. So really, really, look, these games, I think, Peter, we know they're not going to compete with the Olympics in terms of the elite athletes at the very top, but they do have some amazing stories, don't they? And the likes of the Carroll sisters, to me, just epitomises that, really.
Yeah. And just briefly, Chris, what have we got to come?
Well, as I mentioned, the big one to look out for in terms of visually impaired athletes, I think, is probably the track cycling, which starts on Thursday at the Sir Chris Hoy Velodrome. Neil Fackie doesn't need really any introduction, does he?
No, well known as a cyclist, yep.
Absolutely well known as a cyclist. He will be going for many more medals as well. The Welsh have a very good team.
And of course, James Ball is a Welsh cyclist. He's taking part as well.
And I think, look, the Australians are doing very, very well. I mean, they just do anyway. They're massively ahead in the medals table as they wanted to be at this stage. So plenty to look out for, Peter. And as I say, that integrated parasports programme seems to be working very, very well.
Chris McLaughlin, thank you very much. Well, events carry on in Glasgow to the end of the week, and we'll be reporting on our home country's performance in next week's programme. As always, we welcome your views on anything that we've raised in the programme. You can email in touch at bbc.co.uk or leave voice messages on 0161 836 1338. From me, Peter White, and producer Beth Hemmings, goodbye.
Scaffolding and skips news for the week commencing the 3rd of August 2026.
Newport area, 62 St James Street. Roach Pittis, 60 to 66 Lugley Street. 121 St James Street. 54D Carisbrooke Road. Newport area skips, 36 Chapel Street.
In the Ryde area, 141 High Street, 77 George Street, Morrison's Daily, Union Street, 53 Union Street, 5 Union Street, Nat West Bank, St Thomas's Square, opposite the Seaview Beach Shop in Seaview, 5 Weeks Road. And in the Ryde area skips, 115A High Street, 31 George Street, 50 Harding Road, Flat 2 Holly House, Ryde Road, Seaview.
Cowes and East Cowes area, the Parade Public Toilets, Bath Road. Eramew Court, Bridge Road, 29 Cross Street. Cowes and East Cowes area skips, 19 Yarborough Road.
In the Ventnor area, Ventnor Youth Centre, Victoria Street, and Rose Inn, Pier Street.
Sandown area, 27 High Street. Alveston Farmhouse, Main Road, Alveston. Old Town Hall, High Street, Brading.
And in the Yarmouth area, Southwood, Tennyson Road.